Okay, so this is fairly simple to do. All you have to do is to remember the formulas. So for a 45, 45, 90-degree triangle, your formula is the hypotenuse equals the leg times the square root of 2. And for a 30, 60, 90 right triangle, you have two formulas that you need to write down. The hypotenuse is the short leg times 2, and the long leg equals the short leg times the square root of 3. You have to remember what each of these things are. So when we look at a picture, and I'll put examples down here and we'll go through these. All you got to do is fill in where your variables are. So let's take this triangle. There's your 90 degrees. And this says it's 45. So the other one's 45. The side length is 8. The hypotenuse is x. So all we do is fill in the pieces. The hypotenuse is x. The leg is 8. And you take that times the square root of 2. And there you're done. All right, so let's do another 45, 90-degree triangle. All right, so let's look at this one. Find the 90 degrees, so the opposite leg is your hypotenuse, which they say is 5 square root of 2. And they tell you the sides are x's. Now, they don't have 45 or 30 or 60, 90 listed on there. They have the 90, but they don't have the 60 or the 30 or the 45. But because these two are the same, that means that your angles have to be 45, 45. So this is a 45, 45, 90-degree triangle. If you have 90 degrees, you take 180 minus the 90 degrees. That leaves 90 degrees left to be split evenly into those two angles, which makes them 45. So you have to be able to look at a triangle and know what kind of triangle it is. So now let's fill in the pieces. What is the hypotenuse? So I'm looking at this formula every time. The hypotenuse is 5 square root of 2. The leg is x, and you take that times the square root of 2. So how do we solve for x? By dividing off the square root of 2. And you get 5 equals x. All right, so now let's do a 30, 60, 90-degree triangle. And let's just take an equilateral triangle here. And that means this is 60, that's 60, that's 60, and that's 60. Well, if we drop down in altitude, then that splits the top 60 into 30 and 30. And so there you have a 30, 60, 90-degree triangle. All right, if we make the hypotenuse 36, and all sides are 36 in an equilateral triangle, that means this altitude is a segment bisector as well, so that makes this 18 here. So there's our 30, 60, 90-degree triangle. So let's fill everything in. We would write both of these equations and fill everything in. The hypotenuse is 36. The short leg is 18 times 2. That makes sense, right? Well, that doesn't really help us with what the long leg is. We'll call this y. How do I get the long leg? Okay, so the hypotenuse made sense. So let's look at the long leg. We don't know. The short leg is 18, and you take that times the square root of 3. So 18 square root of 3 is the actual answer for the length of the long leg. Okay, so let's do another one. Erase the work here. And every time you have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, write the formula. Same thing for the 45s. So here's another one. Let's do a picture like this. And this is, they say this is 60, this is y, that's x, and this is 6. So let's just fill both equations in. The hypotenuse is x, the short leg is y, take that times 2. Well, we can't do that because we have too many variables, so let's go to the next equation. The long leg is 6, the short leg is y, take that times the square root of 3. So what is y? We divide off the square root of 3. Now, you can't leave this as 6 over the square root of 3. You can't leave a radical in your denominator. So we have to do what we call rationalizing. So if you have a radical in your denominator, multiply by that radical over itself. In the top, we get 6 square root of 3. In the bottom, you notice you have a pair, so that's just 3. And if you can reduce the outside numbers, you do that. So this answer is 2 square root of 3. That's what y is. All right, so now we can plug that into the other equation and get x. So x equals 2 square root of 3 times 2. So x is 4 square root of 3. So those are your two answers. So what you do is you have to fill in the equations on every single problem. And on your worksheet, you must write down the equation that you're using every single time. If these aren't there, you do not get any credit on the worksheet. So the whole first page is all 45, 45, 90s. I better see this written down first before you start the problem. The back side of the worksheet is 30, 60, 90s, and I better see both of these written down on every single problem. And that's how you do your special right triangles.